You've probably seen this CrossFit video where the legendary Jeff Martone instructs the kettlebell clean. He gets a bad rep in this video in the YouTube comments because he doesn't explain it quite as good. So we want to react to this video and see where he maybe went a little off with the explanation, but don't get it twisted. This guy is a real kettlebell legend. Let's check it out. Grüezi miteinander, Gregory von Lebe here. Before we dive into the reaction, we want to see who Jeff Martone really is. And like I mentioned in the beginning, he is a bona fide kettlebell legend. He achieved the rank Master of Sport in the long cycle event in March 2012. In order for you to understand what this means, I assume that Jeff Martone had a body weight of 85 to 90 kilos, and so he had to do 56 reps of the long cycle with two 32 kilogram kettlebells. This is tough stuff. This is the long cycle. It is actually a clean and jerk with two kettlebells. I'm rocking it with 216s right here, and don't get it twisted, 216s are already pretty heavy. It demands power, fitness, strength, and a hell of a lot of a technique to really master this lift. So let's dive into the reaction right
now. Something inefficient about my clean with the kettlebell?
Let's see.
So what he said is, he feels there's something that he does inefficiently with the clean. And this is something that a lot of people do. They don't know how to do the so-called hand insertion.
What?
No, it's the way that it's rotating on your hands, I think, isn't it? Like it's not cutting to that almost like false twitch.
Just put one down. Yeah, exactly. So just clean one.
That's already one thing that Jeff is probably showing them, is master any lift with the kettlebell with one kettlebell first before you use two.
Yeah, see, you want to let it land right in that pocket. So it's, yeah, and when you're doing one.
So in order for him to understand what this means to land in the pocket so that the kettlebell lands in that pocket, is his elbow has to make contact with the iliac crest of his hip to go into the rack rest position. If he doesn't know that, he always sticks his elbow out. So if you stick your elbow out, then maybe the kettlebell always lands not as nice as it should.
Doing one, you could just let it, the thumb rotate back on that, like back behind it. Yeah, you want to be here, just like that.
And this is something that's tricky if you've never done it before. People are always sticking their arms out. So this is not easy that you can go to somebody up and tell them, hey, just keep your arms closed and that's it. The elbow always sticks out because people want to use their shoulder to stabilize the kettlebell because otherwise it falls. So the rack rest position is one thing that you really have to master in order to learn to clean.
Yeah, when you're cleaning, there's something called hand insertion, right? And what people do wrong.
The hand insertion is that one part where you switch between the finger and the hook grip. And the key is to not touch your palm. It is not rolling over your palm or your hand, it is switching and jumping. So what you do is you go into the backswing, then you go into so-called acceleration pull, and then the kettlebell comes up, and then it's the hand insertion. And if you grab the kettlebell with your fingers, then you don't activate your forearm flexors who have a lot of power, so that the kettlebell becomes really tight and rigid in your hands, but you keep it pretty easy. And then you switch into the hook grip, and then you're closing in with your elbows to connect with your hip. And once you switch into the hook grip, always imagine that you want to pierce the kettlebell, not touching your palm.
Again, it's just, all it is just adapting to a different implement, right? So with a bar, the palms are out. With this, it's more like 45 degrees, whatever, turn this way. So when when it swings here, right, then boop, all I'm doing, I'm actually just, because what's happening actually is like.
And this is probably where Jeff gets a bad rap, because he doesn't form one sentence. He says three things at once, which can be tricky for a beginner to understand. So, but I totally agree with him. It's different than when you're grabbing a bar. So you keep that hand really, really nice in the 45-degree angle, and then you pull it up, and always make sure once you got the kettlebell in the rack rest position that your arm is relaxed and that your wrist is relaxed and that your thumb is pointing towards you. And I have a very nice cue that I'm using once I got the kettlebell in the rack rest position. I always say the kettlebell points to my heart. Right. And that's what we call the finger grip, actually. There's a description for this grip.
Right, so it's like I'm not putting the monkey grip on or anything like that. It's just boom, nice and relaxed, right? Then as it comes up, all I'm doing is pushing my hand into that handle. So now...
And pushing your hand into the handle means this is a so-called hook grip.
Oh, see how deep it is right there? So now my grip's rested, right? This is relaxed.
Sounds like a false grip.
Just like a false grip, exactly.
I'm not a professional when it comes to rings, and I'm not a professional when it comes to calisthenics, but a false grip, I believe, is something that's pretty different. If you have a false grip on the bar, then you have to use your flexors, your forearm flexors, to get the hand in that kind of position on top of the bar, as we can see here. This is not the same thing as a false grip. It is a so-called hook grip. There is a description for this.
So when it comes up, boom, as it's coming up, you just stick your hand right in there. Just, whoop, that's it. You're pushing the kettlebell on, you're literally pushing it on, as opposed to it coming up over, and crushing it, which everybody does, you know what I mean?
Yeah, beginners always crush it on the forearms. And this is probably where people are mocking Jeff, or people are saying that he doesn't explain it really well, saying it like, hey, you got to do this just like this, and then boom, and then that. You know, this is not very helpful for a beginner to understand. And please don't misunderstand me. I don't want to give Jeff a bad rep for this. Maybe he's not as articulate to explain the exercise, even though he's a legend. Maybe he had a bad day, because actually I watched another video where he forms better sentences and once more coherent sentences. So maybe he had a bad day.
And I end up with all these bruises.
Yeah, you have all the bruises, yeah. So with these, right? So the same thing when you work too, right? So here, right? Now,
so what he's saying here, right? So same thing. So here, that's where beginners are messing it up, and people don't understand what he's actually talking about. And doing double cleans can be very, very tricky and very, very hard to do if you haven't mastered doing it with one kettlebell only.
If you're gonna stack them, one goes on the other, then it's grip and grip like that. If you interlace them, that's no good because you're gonna get stuck. So, but watch too, like now, watch my top position. You wanna, notice how the thumbs stay rotated back. That's the other big distinction with kettlebell lifting. The thumbs are back, so it's externally rotated, and it's structure that's holding the weight. What happens is if I turn them this way, like as if I had a bar, because the way the kettlebells are on my arm, two things happen. It goes from structure to now it's stressing my triceps out. You know, eventually.
So if I would explain it, I would say what is important here, if you got the kettlebell, if you point your thumbs back, then you use skeletal support to rest the kettlebell. And if you turn your palms in like this, then it's muscular support that you have to engage in to rest the kettlebell, which can be very, very tricky. So always make sure that you point your thumbs back like Jeff is saying.
Now it's stressing my triceps out. You know, eventually unlock if I have enough weight or enough reps. It'll just smoke them. So that's it. So just try to make that conscious effort of boom, keeping those thumbs back. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, that's it, man. So, yeah, I do understand why people are kind of messing it up a little with Jeff saying he doesn't explain it very well. Yeah, and at the same time, you see all these achievements and rankings that he has. This dude is a legend, and maybe he had a bad day. I really believe that he had a bad day. Or they said, hey, listen, you have about 5 minutes of time, and then you have to explain these two folks in the room how to do it. You got to go fast, avoid unnecessary stuff. Maybe that was the outset when he did the video, And when you do the clean and then the press or the jerk or doing it with doubles, what it needs when it comes to the kettlebell sport, the good boy sport, and it needs so much time of explanation that is very, very tricky to explain it to you just in a brief few minutes. Now to finish this one off, I want to show you the 3 phases that are important when it comes to the clean. Now we always start in the so-called hinge ready phase. We call it phase 0 because you start in this phase when you do the swing, the clean and press, or the snatch. And then you go into the back swing, or the so-called inertia swing, where you don't need a lot of force from your glutes and the hips like you would do normally with a normal swing, because you don't want to use as much force to transport the kettlebell right in front of you. Because if you then go into the so-called acceleration pull and you have too much power, the kettlebell has too much force traveling forward, then you probably slam it on your wrist. Then you have the so-called acceleration pull, where we do a little turnout with the hip. And this is very important because once the kettlebell is in front of you, you have to transfer the kettlebell from the horizontal plane into the vertical plane. And that's actually where a lot of beginners mess it up, because it's not as easy to switch the kettlebell from the horizontal into the vertical plane. This is what Jeff was talking about. It's the so-called hand insertion, going from the finger grip into a hook grip. This is something that takes a lot of practice, a lot of time. You have to know when to grab it, when to pull it, when to switch, how to jump, and when's the right moment. And then you go into the so-called rack rest position, where you're standing there, the elbow makes contact with the iliac crest of your hip, and then you're stable, and then you have enough power to rest a few seconds before you go into the dip, the bump, and then the overhead side fixation, then back down again if you do the press or the jerk. So thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, leave a like. If you want to see more of this kettlebell stuff, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.